Hello! Welcome to my channel. I'm Abby. I tend to read a lot, and today we're going to be discussing books that I read because of my sister. Between me and my sister, I am definitely the bigger reader. My sister is not huge on reading normally, and if she does like to read a book, it's usually contemporary, which is not a genre that I'm usually super into, so it works out great. So she's given me a few contemporary books to read throughout the years. Some of them I have loved, some of them I have not loved as much, but we're going to be discussing a few of them today, and one that I am planning on reading because of her recommendation. So first up is Me Before You by Jojo Moyes. So this is a pretty famous contemporary romance that I feel like a ton of people read because the movie came out. The movie was great, by the way. And that is actually the reason that I read this book, was to read it before the movie came out because I really wanted to go see the movie. And to be honest, I had not heard of this book before I saw commercials, but my sister had already read this. And so when I asked her how it was, if it was worth it to read through it before I went to the movie, she pretty much shoved the book in my hands. So if you have not read this book yet, it's about Louisa Clark, who pretty much lives an average life, but she is by no means an ordinary girl. She's hilarious, she's eccentric. I loved her so much as a character. And she takes a job helping Will, who after an accident is paralyzed from the neck down. So it's essentially a story of romance between those two and her showing him that life is still worth living. And I loved it. It's one contemporary book that I think everyone should read, which I don't say very often about contemporary romances. But it is one of those that's heartbreaking throughout most of it. You're gonna wanna cry through pretty much every chapter. I did, at least. And so it's not one that I'm rereading over and over again because I don't want to put myself through that. But it is one that I think is great, and I highly, highly recommend this contemporary romance. So the next book is actually a sequel to a book that I read first, and that is Where She Went by Gayle Forman. So this is the sequel to If I Stay, which is also one that has been made into a movie. I guess I'm seeing a theme here. In the original book, you're following Mia, the main character, who in a car accident gets put in a coma, and essentially you're reliving her memories as she's in this coma while also experiencing what's happening to people while she's in this coma. And it's a really great book. I read it as a school assignment, but it was one that I actually liked even after the assignment was over. So that one was good by itself, and I made my sister go read it. And Gayle Forman came out with a sequel called Where She Went, and I just wasn't really feeling like reading it because I thought the last book ended really well. I thought it could just stop right there. I didn't feel like it needed a sequel, but my sister read the sequel and she thought it was really good, so I went ahead and read it. And this one is following both Mia and Adam and following where they went. This is a romance, but it's not one that ends too perfectly, like tied up in a little bow. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, but I still really liked being able to see those two characters again and getting to understand Adam a little bit better. I'd say if you've read If I Stay, or if you saw the movie even, go ahead and check this one out because it is pretty good and it does give you a lot more insight on the characters from the original book. And then the last book that my sister recommended that I actually got all the way through is my favorite contemporary book of all time. Best contemporary romance I've ever read. I'm sure some of you know where this is going. But that book is Anna and the French Kiss by Stephanie Perkins. I love this book so freaking much. It's so good, and if you haven't read it, please go get it right now. Please read it and please start fangirling with me over it. This book follows our main character, Anna, whose dad sends her off to a boarding school in Paris. She doesn't know any French. She's kind of really upset about this happening to her senior year of high school. But while there, she makes this really good group of friends, including Etienne St. Clair, who is this beautiful character. British and French and American, and he becomes her best friend at the school, and it soon turns into this adorable romance between the two of them. I can't even put into words how great this book is. The characters are amazing. Usually my biggest issue with contemporary romance books is the main character. So in this case, I was really worried that Anna was going to get on my nerves, but I really liked her. Her complaints throughout the novel are valid. What her dad's done to her, throwing her into this boarding school in Paris, I would be pissed too. I'm also a semi-French speaker. I've taken a lot of French classes throughout school, and I love Paris. That's my dream vacation, so I loved the setting of this as well. This one I am definitely in for the characters. I love Anna and Etienne. I loved them when they were just friends and it was a completely platonic relationship. I love this book, and I am so thankful that my sister told me to read it, because I did not read this right when it came out. I had seen it around for a while and I was like, it's just another contemporary romance, and even though I heard all these great things about it, I was like, that's just not really my genre. But then my sister, once again, shoved it into my hands. I'm so glad she did. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and definitely my favorite contemporary romance. Okay, and then I've got 2 books that she told me to read, and I probably got through 100 pages in each of these, and I just couldn't keep reading them. Not that they aren't bad books. Actually, the writing is pretty good in both of these. I didn't take to the story, so I just didn't want to waste my time and force myself to keep reading it. The first book that I did not finish that my sister recommended to me is The Heir by Kiera Cass. Now, I loved the Selection series. I actually made my sister read that series because I knew it was going to be something that she would love. She also just loved Kiera Cass as an author. She's read a lot of other books by her, and one of them was The Heir. So this is a spin-off series from the Selection series that follows America and Maxon's daughter. And essentially, she's having to go through this bachelorette type program again to try and find herself a husband. Really, the only thing I didn't like about this book was the main character, Edelyn, Princess Edelyn. I could not get over how much I did not like this character. I found her really whiny, really superficial, and I know my sister has said that she kind of like grows out of it, and that's probably the point of the book, but it just wasn't a character that I could identify with at all. It wasn't someone who I was rooting for to like find someone that she loved. I was just like, wow, you are so freaking annoying. Go away. So unfortunately, I did not like this book. I really wanted to because I love the Selection series so much, like I said, but it just wasn't meant to be. Okay, and then the second book that my sister recommended that I did not finish is The Unexpected Everything by Morgan Matson. So this book follows a main character, Andy, who is a politician's daughter. So she's constantly in the limelight, and she thinks she has her whole life planned out. And then this big scandal happens with her dad, and so things kinda go crazy for a little while, and she ends up having to walk dogs over the summer instead of going to this really elite program that she thought she was going to get in. Eventually she meets a guy, and it probably turns into a romance. At least that's what I expect from the part that I read. But once again, this was a main character who I just could not connect with at all. I tried so hard because it does look like a pretty fun book, but Andy was not someone that I identified with once again. Just like Edelyn in The Heir, this just wasn't a character that I liked. I mean, she was whiny and she expected everything just to come to her because she was a politician's daughter. And once again, I'm sure she grows out of that, and I'm sure that's what this whole summer is supposed to teach her. But like, you don't have to have everything planned out. Everything else, I was like, girl, you are so annoying. I didn't like Andy enough that it pushed me away from the book, and I knew if I kept forcing myself to read it, I would just get into a funk with reading, and I didn't want to do that to myself, so I just stopped. These two were not for me, unfortunately. And then real quick, last but not least, this is a book that my sister told me about fairly recently. It seems interesting, so I think I'm gonna try and read it. And that is #Famous by Jilly Gagnon. Gagnon? This is described as a modern day love story, contemporary romance. We're back. Where Rachel, who is kind of just stays under the radar, she wants to get to New York after high school, takes a picture of her crush, Kyle, and it becomes insta-famous. And so what was meant to be just a fun little joke for Rachel suddenly explodes, and everyone knows that she has a crush on Kyle, including him. And then their 15 minutes of fame starts to like spiral, and they have fangirls and haters and all that crap that comes with becoming famous on the internet. And so it seems like a really interesting book and what could really be a cute book. So I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to see these characters. Also, one of the reviews on the back mentions it being similar to Eleanor and Park, which I loved. So hopefully I'll love this one as well. But I'll let y'all know. So that is it. I love getting recommendations for books, especially for genres that I'm not really into, so I really appreciate my sister telling me that I should read these books, and I probably deserve it after I've told her to read about 1,000 books that I've read. Definitely check out some of these books if you haven't read them yet. Whether or not I liked them, they're still good books, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would like these. I'll let you know what I think about #Famous, possibly in a review, definitely in a wrap-up of some sort. So yeah, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hit that little subscribe button down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!